All right, kia ora everyone. Welcome to Agent FX. I am going to demonstrate my autonomous agent solving Power FX problems on the Power Platform. I'm Nathan Rose. I am a solution architect and Microsoft MVP based here in beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. So, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through autonomous agents in Copilot Studio, and I'm going to show you how I've configured this to solve some problems for me. Now, this demo is going to closely resemble the tutorial that Lisa Crosby put out. So if you're looking for a step-by-step guide to get your Hello World, I would direct you toward Lisa's resource. Shout out to Lisa. She is amazing. Thank you for putting that guide together. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I've learned from Lisa's tutorial and how I've put this together to help makers solve problems with Power Effects on the Power Platform. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so this is my autonomous Power Effects agent. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that it has a lot of text here. I have written paragraphs and paragraphs of text to tell this agent what to do. Agents differ from traditional automation because unlike traditional automation, think plugins, think cloud flows, that type of thing. We're not passing parameters into it like we're used to. So in the world of traditional automation, we're going to pass parameters. An email comes into a mailbox, we're going to grab the subject and the sender, and then we're going to go and do stuff with that. In the world of autonomous agents, we are giving it a blob of text, asking it to reason over that, pull the stuff out of it that it thinks it needs, take that away to a knowledge source, put together an answer, and bring it back to us. Probably the best analogy that I can give you is I don't know if you remember back in math class in school, you had your traditional problems that you'd have to solve where they'd throw numbers at you and you'd add and subtract and divide. And then they would give you word problems, right? You'd have this paragraph you'd have to decipher. And from that paragraph, you'd have to pull out the numbers that you were then supposed to perform mathematical operations on. That's what's going on here. You are giving a block of text, something that's been composed in an email or something like that, to the agent. The agent's going to look over that. It's going to extract out the parameters that it needs and then pass that to the LLM to determine here's what I actually need to do with this. So that's what's going on. So that's how it's different from your traditional automation. Now, one thing that I want to call out is when you are setting these up on the Power Platform, this is different than traditional automation because, again, in traditional, say you're setting up a cloud flow, you're going to give it the title because you have to, and then you're going to jump right into triggers and actions. You're not going to spend a lot of time on the description. You probably don't spend a lot of time renaming triggers and actions and whatnot. At least I don't, because you're busy. But this is critically important in the world of autonomous agents because this is all about language. Every little piece of language you put into this is going to the LLM to help this agent do its job. So we've got a description. Again, this is filled in to help the agent know what it's supposed to do. I've then given it a specific set of instructions. Now, again, this closely resembles Lisa's demo. The only thing that's different is instead of a returns policy, we are looking at power effects and saying, hey, what power effects formulas do I need to use based on the question that's been asked? Okay, so you're going to give it instructions, make sure that you toggle the Gen AI orchestration to yes. Next, you're going to give it knowledge. Now, what I've done is I have simply hooked it up to the Power Platform documentation. What's really critical, again, the name and the description, you want to make sure that you fill this out in detail because this is going to help the agent know what it's supposed to do when you trigger it. Um, Now, I wanted to link this directly to the Power Effects documentation, but you are limited. When you put this in, you can only go one level deep in the website. So this is hooked up to the official Power Platform documentation, which includes Power Effects. And so that's the knowledge that's available to this agent. Now, I have turned off general knowledge just so that it only reasons over the official Power Platform documentation when it's answering me. Next, you're going to configure your actions and your triggers. See Lisa's video for all the details on this. If you've worked in Power Automate, it works exactly the same way. You know how triggers work, you know how actions work because this works the same way as Power Automate. Again, though, I will call out what you're going to want to do is you will want to be setting names and descriptions on these because, again, this helps the agent know what it's supposed to do. This is stuff that in Power Automate you probably don't do, but in an autonomous agent, definitely set it. Make sure that you've given it clear, unambiguous instructions about what this action is and what it's supposed to do. All right, let's go back. And the last thing, again, with the trigger, yeah, I don't think I need to click that. Anyways, it works just like Power Automate. I've told it to trigger when an email comes in using a specific subject line. So I've said Power FX help, and when the email comes in with that subject, it's going to trigger this agent to run. One other thing I'm going to quickly show you that differs from Lisa's demo. This was my experience. Now, again, this is still in preview, and so these things are changing rapidly. In Lisa's demo, the agent you can just leave these inputs for the agent to dynamically fill with the best option. And for the most part, that has been my experience. The only place where it differed was in the output from my action, send an email. When I had it on dynamically set, it didn't work. And so what I actually had to change this to was you create a message, and then I just stuck a PowerFX expression in here, which is just topic.response.output. And so that's going to give me the body of the email that's going to be sent to the user. All right, let's go ahead and see this thing in action. Let's run it. So we've got a test canvas here. Now this test canvas is going to look exactly like traditional copilots that you're used to working with. You're going to prompt it and it's going to respond to you. But this lets us test to see, does our agent work the way we expect it to? And then once I've done that, let's start throwing some complex problems at it and seeing it work. All right, so let's tell it I need a PowerFX formula to add 2 and 2 together and then multiply the sum of those numbers by 3. Let's ask the agent to solve this for us. So it's been triggered. We've passed our details and it's given us a PowerFX formula. It's going to add 2 and 2 and then it's going to multiply by 3. Now, if we want to prove these to ourselves with some of the more complex ones, if we can't eyeball it, we can eyeball this one. But what you can do is in VS Code, you can run the PowerFX command line interface. And if we come over here to grab our formula, we can go ahead and run it and just validate that it in fact does do what we expect, and it does. Cool. So I am reasonably satisfied that this agent is going to work for us. Let's go ahead and start asking it some questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to email into this agent, and it's going to respond to me with an email. So the email is going to come into this mailbox here, and it's going to, with the subject PowerFX help, this is what I need it to do. And then it's going to respond to me with the PowerFX formula and with the subject that I've specified when configuring this action in the autonomous agent. So let me go ahead and do this. So the first thing I want to ask it, let me bring my prompts up here. All right, so let's do this. Let's say we need a PowerFX expression. It's going to generate 2 random numbers. If the first random number is larger, we want to return fizz. Otherwise, if the second random number is larger, we want to return buzz. So I'm just going to come down here to my mailbox and I'm going to quickly send this in. All right, so Here we go. All right. So this is what we're going to send in. Let's go ahead and send that. We'll wait for this to come into the mailbox. It should come in very shortly. We've received it. All right, so now the agent's been triggered to run over this. So it's going to reason over this problem, and then it's going to send us an email back in any second now with the response. So we'll give this a second to run through. Now one of the other ways you can test this is if you click the test beaker here next to your trigger, oh, we got the response, is you'll see all the recent things that just came in. But let's come back here to our mailbox and let's see. Okay, we got if rand greater than rand, fizz, otherwise buzz. That looks correct to me. Let's go ahead and give this a try. Let's copy and paste it. Let's come into VS Code, paste this in to the CLI, and it's returned buzz. Let's try it again. There we go. Cool. So we don't know what those random numbers are. We just know that we're generating them, and that if the first one is larger than the second one, we get fizz, otherwise we get buzz. Cool. All right, so it got it right. Let's prompt it with another one. Let's go ahead and ask it something else. Let's see if it can calculate the number of weekdays between a start and end date. Now, I've not told it the start and end dates. I'm going to let it determine that for itself. Let me just come up here to my mailbox and let's send that in. Again, Power FX help. Paste this in, send. All right. Let's see what it does for us. All right, we've got our question that's come into the mailbox. We'll give this a few seconds. Now, you might be asking, Nathan, this looks a lot like you've basically chat GPT'd email, and there's a little bit of truth to that. What I wanted to do was just kind of get my head around what this is actually doing, do a bit of a hello world. And once I understand that, then I can start to look to how do we actually apply this to more complex production type scenarios. All right, we've got our response. Calculate number of weekdays. We need to do the following formula with, okay, it's given us a start date and it's given us an end date, and it's gone and put this formula together. And it's given us a little bit of explanation around it as well. Replace these. Okay, let's go ahead and try this. Come back to VS Code. All right, so it's going to calculate the number of weekdays between 2 Feb and 28 Feb 2025. We got 20. All right. Let's go to the calendar and see if that's right. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 weeks, 5 days in each. We have 20 non-weekend days in February. Now, today is actually a public holiday in Auckland, but I haven't specified that. So PowerFX got it right. Cool, cool, cool. All right, let's do one more. So I think we're getting the idea here. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think this is pretty exciting and pretty cool. Let's give it another one. Let's say we need to multiply two randomly generated numbers together, divide the product by 2, modify the remainder. If the remainder is an even number, return fizz. Otherwise, if it's odd, return buzz. Let's send that in. Come back to my mailbox here. Again, make sure we put in the right subject so it knows what to do. All right, we've got our question that's just come in, and we'll give this a couple of seconds to reply. Now, in theory, because this is reasoning over the whole of the Power Platform, documentation, it could theoretically answer questions about anything Power Platform related. The only thing is we've given it instructions to say only give us Power Effects answers. Okay, let's see. We got our answer. All right, generate two random numbers. Yep. Let's quickly try this, but it looks right to me. Yep, we got two random numbers. Next, multiply them and divide the product by 2. So set your random numbers. Let's try this. Don't think that's going to work. That doesn't look quite right. Oh, it does. Yep. So it's given us two numbers and it's given us a remainder. So that works. Let's go to the next one. So if the remainder is 2, 0, fizz, otherwise buzz. All right. Now, this is, I think, where it's kind of fallen down a bit because it's not taking into account our random numbers. Yeah, so it's so this remainder, I'm not quite sure what that is. So it's given us all the steps. What it just didn't do was it put them all together because ultimately I would have wanted to see this if wrapped around this formula here. So it got close. It got all the steps. It just didn't quite get it in the right order. But that's still pretty impressive considering that I just gave a question, a block of text, and the agent went away, reasoned over it, and it got me most of the right answer. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's faster than a lot of people could have come up with it. So I'm reasonably impressed. All right, let's see here in our test canvas. Let's ask it some questions about Power FX and see if it can answer those. Is Power FX strongly or weakly typed? So it's going to reason over this. It's searching the knowledge. And it came back to us. It's strongly typed language. And it's got our reference docs. Cool. Let's throw it something. I don't know. Let's ask it. Let's say, can I use Power FX in Dataverse? Look at that. Power FX allows you to bind objects together with declarative spreadsheet-like formulas. So yeah, I would have loved for it to mention Power FX formula columns specifically, but again, it got the right answer. All right, let's email this in. Let's see if we can get a response just asking a general question about Power FX. So let's go with the strongly or weakly typed, just because that's a pretty much like shooting fish in a barrel and demo trick. You want to shoot fish in a barrel, right? So let's go ahead and send that in. Again, Power FX help. Let's send that in and let's see if we get a response back. All right, so we've triggered the agent to run over this. Now, what I've told it to do in the instructions, let's come back to the overview while that's running, is I've told it, if you don't know the answer, tell me you don't know it. So let's see if it's able to do that. Now, when I tried this earlier, I didn't get any response at all. So ideally, I'd like to get a response saying, "Hey, I don't know, that's out of my purview." But again, it might take some tweaking by me in the instructions for these agents. So with instructions like any job description that you'd be writing for someone that you're working with, you want to be crystal clear. Non-ambiguous. You don't want to give it conflicting, confusing language because again, just like a human, this agent is going to reason over this and then determine what it's supposed to do. So, all right, I don't think it's going to give us the response here. So I suspect it has something to do with there's no formula involved. So I think that's what's going on. I need to dig into it a little bit more. But that is how you can use power effects in autonomous agents. Sorry, use autonomous agents to generate power effects formulas for you based on the official Power Platform documentation in the Microsoft Docs. So that is my first ever autonomous agent. Onwards and upwards from here. Now that I've got my head around it, I can start to apply this to more complex business scenarios, the kinds that we'd see in a production environment. But I hope this helps you better understand agents and what's going on, how they work. Again, to get started, I'd refer you to Lisa's video. It's amazing. But I hope this helps you kind of understand what's going on, how these differ from traditional automation that we're creating in things like Power Automate and plugins and that type of thing, to solve some kind of unique and interesting challenges. So it's different than traditional automation, but it lets us do some really cool things. So that's my autonomous agent. Hope you all found it helpful. As always, go do something awesome on the Power Platform today, and I will talk to you all soon.